I started Unapologaytic to deal with my own gay shame. And so the shame of growing up gay, really. So have you experienced that?
Oh, God, going in straight with the deep questions. So yeah, like the short answer is yes. So I turned 40 last summer, so the summer of 2022. And I guess the reason that I'm saying my age is because I want kind of the listeners to kind of understand that the place that I come from, or the generation that I'm from, I think kind of grew up in a certain time in society, went to school at a certain time, and have seen kind of progress happen in certain places around queer culture in their lifetimes. And I think for me, and for your listeners today, we're talking like pretty much smack bang in the middle of LGBT History Month in the UK. So it's February. And I know that LGBT History Month was created in the UK to mark the anniversary the abolition of something called Section 28, which was a piece of government legislation which started in the middle of the 80s and wasn't fully repealed until 2003, if my dates are right there. And during that period was the time that I went to school. Section 28 was all about educational establishments not being allowed to promote homosexuality. And the fallout from that, as well as the fact that I grew up in a small town in the county of Shropshire in England, where there was very little in the way of kind of diversity of all kinds. I didn't know anyone that was gay. You didn't see anyone that was gay / queer in the media, on TV, or if they were perceived in a certain kind of way. And when I was particularly at school, this legislation, alongside the fact that I had a bit of a tough time at school, kind of meant that during those kind of really informative years when you're exploring yourself, exploring your sexuality, hormones and emotions start to ooze out of you in abundance. I spent those really informative years, pretty frightened and pretty lonely because, in my heart of hearts, I knew I was gay. Yet all around me, there was this rhetoric, this dialogue, this narrative that said being gay is a bad thing. Being gay is not a life choice or a lifestyle that is going to set you up for success. So that for me is kind of an important part of my story, because of that time in society, that time in LGBT history. And it was the foundational stuff that informed my development, my progression, and my journey into being a young man and into adulthood. And some of the stuff that happened during that time, so the questioning, the denial, the bullying weighed heavily on me. And that is like the gay shame, the baggage, the gay shame baggage that I guess I carry. And it took me, well, in many ways I'm still working through it, but in many ways it was really, I would say, like my mid to late 20s that I really started to, I guess, lean into it and face it head on, and refuse to let it kind of pigeonhole me or define me in any kind of way. And I would say, going back to your question, yes, I've had gay shame. Do I still have gay shame? Yes, I think it'll always be part of who I am. But I use it as I take strength from the journey that I've been on, and the the ways that I've battled it. And like I said, I've lent into those issues. I've turned it into a strength. I don't let it define me or be a weakness in any way anymore.
When you say you decided to take it head on, then how did you do that?
I think it was a variety of things that was just kind of going on in my life at the time. So I came out when I was 17, 18, and I was studying in the college in my hometown. And I met a couple of gay people, developed a group of friends. They were really, it was really great fun. Had a really great time. I had a bit too much of a good time, actually. I probably would have ended up going to university if I'd not come out and met this group of friends, but instead I focused more on having a great time rather than studying well for my A-levels. And when exams, and particularly exam results came along, I was like, okay, I need to figure out a different path for myself. And I didn't end up going to university as a result of it. And instead of going to university, I started work. And I guess I got distracted by some work-related stuff, just trying to figure out a path for myself, I guess, professionally, in my late teens and early 20s. So I didn't really think about kind of my queerness, and I had a couple of relationships around the time which weren't suitable and ideal for me. And it was when I ended up moving from Shrewsbury to Nottingham in, I think it was about 2004, 2005 when I moved. And to me, it was like moving to the big city. It was the big city lights. Anyone that knows Nottingham will know that it's actually just a really big town. But to me, it was the buses ran on a Sunday, and that was a big deal. So I moved to Nottingham and kind of left this life back in Shrewsbury, in this kind of very rural town behind me. I moved here for love. I was with a guy at the time, and things didn't work out there. But I'd moved to this new place. I didn't want to go home with my tail in between my legs, and so decided to give life in Nottingham my best shot. Made some friends. I made one friend in particular who really kind of opened my eyes and challenged me to see myself in a different kind of light. And so I think some of the support, encouragement and challenge that he gave me, really helped me kind of drop a lot of the things that were holding me down. And they were things such as feeling like I had limitations with how far I would go professionally, or kind of who I was as a person, some of my characteristics. And I think meeting him, feeling like I'd found some level of independence and feeling like I'd left this life behind, like in Shrewsbury. And, I don't want to paint a bad picture of Shrewsbury. It was a lovely place to grow up, and it's a beautiful little town. But, because of some of the stuff that had happened there, leaving that behind and feeling like I'd shut the door on that chapter in my life was a real turning point.
Yeah, I've had something very similar, because I grew up in the Caribbean. And although I'm from the French Caribbean, so it's nowhere near as violent as, what we hear in the other islands. So I was not even bullied. I was more teased, but that's bad enough, really, to experience shame, especially when we're so young. And the other thing I find is that I couldn't even tell my parents. I couldn't even tell anybody, because being gay was condemned anyway. So that was. Yeah, it takes some work to overcome that.
Absolutely, yeah. When you've got family, society, but there's also, for you, needing to deal with, the fact that being queer, being homosexual was illegal, you know, I can't even imagine.
Actually, for me, it was legal because because in the Caribbean, there were French laws,
right?
So, or even back then already, there were European laws,
right.
So it wasn't illegal, but illegal or not, I was still teased.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Apologies, I misunderstood you then, but
no, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think as queer people, we can be really quick to dismissive of our lived experiences. I know you being like, all I was teased. You know, that's still a really shitty experience to have to have lived through.
Yeah.
And whether the teasing, the bullying, however you want to badge it, is however it's kind of conveyed, and sometimes it can be really overt, and sometimes it can be really subliminal. And I think sometimes some of the most kind of dangerous kind of discrimination and prejudice that any marginalised group can experience is the stuff that is not very obvious, and the stuff that's actually kind of going on behind closed doors or inside someone's mind. Like, you know, I do a lot of work with within kind of my day job around LGBT inclusion kind of in workplaces, and we talk a lot about unconscious bias and stuff like that in those spaces. And, you know, what we know about unconscious bias is that, you know, as a queer person, you'll never quite know which job you never got because you presented yourself as queer in an interview. You'll never know what promotion you got overlooked for your heterosexual counterpart. So, I think we can be dismissive, and it's important just like face into the fact, like, you know, I got treated differently because I'm queer, and that's shit.